The bright lights of the talk show stage cast a dazzling glow over the set. The audience sat in eager anticipation, waiting for the next guest to take the chair across from the host. The cameras panned across the packed studio, the energy electric with excitement. The host, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit, leaned back in his chair with a confident smirk. He had built his reputation on being witty, sarcastic, and sometimes outright ruthless with his guests. His interviews were known for their cutting remarks and his ability to make celebrities squirm under the pressure of his humor. Tonight's guest? Keanu Reeves. The applause erupted as Keanu stepped onto the stage, his usual calm demeanor in place. He wore a simple black suit, understated yet effortlessly stylish. His movements were unhurried, his presence quiet but commanding. The host clapped along with the audience but with a mischievous glint in his eyes. As Keanu took his seat, the host wasted no time launching into his act. "So, Keanu," the host began, leaning forward with a smirk. "I have to ask. How does it feel to be Hollywood's most humble millionaire? You've got all this money, yet you still dress like you shop at thrift stores." Laughter rippled through the audience. Some chuckled nervously, sensing the underlying jab. Keanu gave a small smile, unfazed. "I guess I just like being comfortable." The host grinned wider. Right. But let's be honest. You've been in this industry for decades, but you're still seen as, what, Hollywood's nice guy. Don't you think it's a bit boring?" A few people in the crowd exchanged glances. The question was bait, designed to push for a reaction. Keanu's expression didn't change. "I don't really think about labels," he said simply. "I just try to be myself." The host chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, come on, Keanu. You've got to admit, being too nice doesn't exactly scream leading man material. I mean, you don't have the arrogance, the ego. Aren't you tired of playing the same roles?" The audience shifted in their seats. Something in the tone felt off, like the host was trying too hard to diminish Keanu's legacy. Keanu tilted his head slightly. "You think kindness is boring?" The host shrugged. "Let's just say, Hollywood loves a bit of drama. Maybe a scandal. Maybe, just a little bad boy energy." Keanu let the silence settle for a moment, the air in the studio thick with unspoken tension. Then, he leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but piercing. "I think Hollywood loves whatever sells," he said. "And I think people like you love to create a narrative, whether it's real or not." The audience gasped. The host blinked, momentarily caught off guard. The playful smirk on his face wavered ever so slightly. Keanu continued, his voice steady. "People don't have to be arrogant to be successful. They don't have to be rude to be respected. And just because you think kindness is boring, doesn't mean it is." A hush fell over the audience. The camera zoomed in on the host's expression. His smirk was gone now, replaced with something closer to discomfort. Keanu leaned back in his chair, perfectly at ease. The host, however, was struggling to regain control of the conversation. The energy in the room had shifted. But Keanu wasn't finished yet. Because what happened next would leave everyone in that studio absolutely speechless. The air in the studio hung heavy with anticipation. The host, clearly rattled by Keanu's composed response, shifted in his seat, forcing an uneasy chuckle. He wasn't used to guests turning the tables on him. This was his stage, his show, and yet, for the first time in a long time, it felt like he had lost control of the room. "Well," the host said, trying to recover, "I guess we're learning that Keanu Reeves is not just Hollywood's nicest guy, but also quite the philosopher." Keanu gave a small nod. "I think we all have things we believe in. And I believe treating people with kindness and respect isn't something that should be mocked." The audience erupted into applause. The host forced a smile, waiting for the cheers to die down before leaning forward again. All right, he said. Let's switch gears. You've played some iconic roles, Neo, John Wick, even Ted from Bill and Ted. But if we're being honest, some critics argue that your acting is, let's say, minimalistic. That maybe, just maybe, you've been getting by on luck rather than talent. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was a direct hit, an attempt to discredit years of Keanu's work in the industry. The tension grew as all eyes turned to him, waiting to see how he would respond. Keanu, however, remained completely unfazed. He let the silence stretch just long enough to let the weight of the words settle. Then, in his signature calm tone, he said, "That's an interesting take." The host smirked. "Well, what do you say? Do you think luck got you here?" Keanu leaned forward slightly, his eyes locking onto the host's. "Luck is real," he admitted. "I've been fortunate. I've met the right people at the right time. But luck doesn't keep you in this industry for over 30 years. The audience murmured in agreement. "I work hard," Keanu continued. "I show up. I put everything I have into every role I play. And sure, my style isn't flashy. But maybe that's the point." The host raised an eyebrow. "The point?" Keanu nodded. "Movies aren't about actors trying to outshine each other. They're about telling stories. And sometimes, the best way to do that is not by taking up all the space in the room, but by making space for the story to breathe." A deep silence settled over the studio before the audience erupted into applause once more. The host's confident demeanor was beginning to crack. He glanced down at his notes, flipping through them quickly, searching for a way to regain control. "All right, let's talk about something fun then," he said, forcing another smile. "You're known for your generosity. Giving away money, helping strangers. That's great and all, but do you ever think you're too generous? Hollywood is a tough business, Keanu. Maybe you should start thinking about yourself more." Keanu tilted his head slightly, considering the question. "I do think about myself," he said. "And I think about the world I want to live in." The host laughed awkwardly. "So, you don't mind giving away millions? No regrets?" Keanu smiled. "No regrets." The room fell silent again, and for the first time, the host seemed completely lost for words. This was supposed to be just another interview, another night of witty banter and playful jabs. But instead, it had turned into something more, a moment of clarity, of reflection, one that no one in the audience had expected. A producer frantically signaled from behind the cameras. They were running out of time. The host sighed, realizing he had been bested. "Well, Keanu, I gotta say, you are one hard guy to rattle," he admitted with a chuckle. "It's been enlightening." Keanu simply smiled. "Thanks for having me." The show's outro music swelled, and the audience leapt to their feet, giving Keanu a standing ovation. As the cameras panned out, the host sat back in his chair, looking equal parts impressed and defeated. As Keanu walked off the stage, his quiet wisdom and unshakable grace left an impact that no one would soon forget.